Thank you. Welcome, both of you, Secretary, Madam Secretary, and Chairman Powell. Chairman Powell, I'll direct my first question to you. The Phillips curve is an economic concept that represents an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. Historically, it's been utilized to understand the relationship between unemployment and inflation, particularly in relation to the Federal Reserve's dual mandate of price stability and maximum employment. You're very aware of this, Mr. Chairman. Some economists question the current validity of this concept, as the connection between inflation and unemployment has seemed to grow weaker in recent years. Chairman Powell, is the Phillips curve still a valid economic model or tool, and have you observed any notable strengthening in the relationship between unemployment and inflation during the pandemic?
Senator, if you go back to the high inflation area that we both recall, there was a very close relationship, a one-for-one kind of relationship, or close to it, between unemployment and inflation. That is no longer the case. There is still a relationship, but we say the Phillips curve is very flat, but it's not completely flat. So there is a relatively modest relationship. The slope of the line is 7 degrees or something, so very flat. Is there any change that we observe in the near term? To get to your last question, not at this point, no.
Do you watch the Phillips curve?
Well, we do, but if you saw, we had 3.5% unemployment and very modest inflation for a couple of years before the pandemic. So it's really not a top of mind concern. The inflation that we're having is, but it's really not related to the Phillips curve.
Would you say that the Phillips curve concept is not valid right now?
It's not particularly binding right now. Inflation is high and the unemployment rate is high, so it's not really the binding constraint.
Okay. I'll direct this question to the Secretary. The stepped-up basis, Madam Secretary, is a tax provision that allows for a beneficiary to adjust the basis of an asset to its current value rather than its value when originally purchased. We know that. This provision allows for beneficiaries to avoid paying high taxes on assets that have increased over time, largely due to inflation. President Biden's American Families Plan includes a proposal to eliminate the stepped-up basis. A lot of people believe that such a change would result in a costly tax increase on family-owned businesses, particularly on farms and ranches. According to a study by the Texas A&M Agriculture and Food Policy Center, 98% of the farms in its 30-state database would be impacted by the Biden administration's proposal. The study calculates that the average additional tax liability per farm to be over $720,000. Madam Secretary, do you support eliminating stepped-up basis for state beneficiaries? And if you do, why?
Senator Shelby, I do support eliminating stepped-up basis. The reason is that a very large share of the income of wealthy individuals is simply never taxed. Individuals hold on to these assets during their lifetime. That income is never taxed. And we know that for some of the wealthiest individuals in the country, they pay very low taxes overall because most of their income takes the form of unrealized capital gains. The Biden administration proposed that at death, those gains be taxed, and with careful consideration, not in any way to harm the prospects of family-owned farms or small businesses. There were substantial exemptions to protect them. Even if there is not actually taxation imposed at death, getting rid of stepped-up basis would mean that an heir would inherit the original basis of the asset, and when that person eventually sold the asset, taxes would be paid. But I regard step-up of basis as a kind of loophole that allows a very large portion of income in this country of the wealthiest individuals to go untaxed.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.